Today I'm ranking your Grail watches. Over on my Watch Crunch, here on my posts and on my Instagram, I asked for your Grail watches, and as ever, you did not disappoint. You've not come back to me with a million different Submariner and Speedmaster references, but some interesting horology and some surprisingly affordable options as well. I will be putting each of your picks into one of four groups. First, the Holiest of Grails. Second, I get it, I really do. Third, you do you. And last, and you're mad. I won't be going too far into these watches, so if you're seriously looking at getting them, do make sure to check out a review or two. But a general vibe check, anything fun, and a spec or two we will most certainly be covering. Welcome to Doug's Watches, the thinking watch channel. Here I like to go beyond the watch dial, looking at art, history, design, and sometimes philosophy in watches. So, if that sounds good to you, do make sure to like and subscribe. Okay, so before we get into your Grails, I just want to say a few words on the Grail watch in general. A lot of people said that the Grail watch doesn't exist. If you get your Grail, the goalpost will move, and you're forever caught up in this vicious consumerist cycle. If you save for a decade for a steel Oyster Perpetual, I dare say you'll return for a sub and eventually a platinum day date given the financial ability. But I think we're looking at Grails wrong. Behind me I have a few adverts of a couple of my Grails. Now, these are not outside my financial grasp, but they might not be wise purchases. But I could have them. Yet I've decided my Grails are different to just being able to buy the damn thing purchase. They're a purchase for when I've done certain things, a culmination of hard work and dedication. Because I don't think watches should ever be a representation of being able to buy the thing, but a representation of what you've done to be able to get to that point. It's a small difference, but a massive one. It's the change from external validation to internal validation. It's anti-flex culture, while still allowing yourself to indulge in the finer things of life. But that's enough thinking for today. Let's look at your Grail watches. So, we're kicking off with quite a big hitter, the Glashütte Original Senator Chronometer Rose Gold with a white dial. Now, I'm putting this into I get it, I really do. These come in at £12,000, so not as highly priced as some other Glashütte company-based brands. A comparable longer one would cost between £3,000 and £5,000 more on Chrono24. If I were in this market, I'd probably go for that, but I get why you'd opt for this. A perfectly spaced dial, balancing Roman numerals, a small second indicator, and a power reserve indicator. Next up then, the Concorde Centurion. Whoever put this forward, you're going right into the "and you're mad" section. Now, if you put this forward, you may have a special story connecting you to this watch, and that's a valid reason as any for buying one and lusting after one. But at the £1,500 or $2,000 price point, there are an awful lot of comparable, in-era, integrated bracelet watches that I think have this one pipped. The Omega Constellation Manhattan, or maybe even the Genta-designed Polaris, the Baume and Mercier Riviera, Genta-designed Seiko Creedle, the list goes on, but then to each their own, I guess. Next up, we have the only two AP Royal Oaks that were put forward. The reference is 16202, which I'm putting in the Holiest of Grails, and the 15202, which is going in I get it, I really do. If you made me pick between the two, I would be getting the 16202 all day long. The watch has the newer caliber 7121 movement in it, whereas the 15202 has the original Royal Oak movement still. The 7121 is a completely in-house piece, which while a little bit of marketing BS, I reckon when you're spending more than 50 grand on a watch, you are entitled to all the marketing BS that you can get your hands on. Now thankfully, someone put this next watch forward, otherwise I'd have just added it anyway. The Cartier Santos de Cartier, medium in gold and steel. This is the Holiest of Grails for me, as you can see by this poster here. I've had it sit on my wall for a couple of years, and there is rarely a day goes by where I don't search for one. The Santos is a brilliant watch, something that I think transcends your price tiers of watches altogether. Whereas your uber-rich Longer and Holy Trinity owners may look down on a comparably expensive Omega Seamaster 300 or a Rolex Datejust, the Cartier can step outside all of this, arguably because of its history as one of the first watches, and in the two-tone, a style I'm not normally a fan of, it seems a little bit more elevated and classy. Just make sure you're not picking up the quartz model. These really do seem a little bit overpriced for what is effectively an Etta quartz piece with Cartier etched on the movement. Moving on then, the FP Journe Elegante, but in all white. This is going straight into I get it, I really do. Now the Elegante, I must admit, after seeing the story of Brit Pierce, I have a much greater respect for. As you should all know, I'm an advocate for quartz in certain circumstances, and this FP Journe has gone all in on making quartz an art. The watchmaking here is incredibly impressive, with the watch shutting itself off to save battery when it's not being used. It's not the fact that this watch is all white, or maybe it's more feminine design motifs that are putting this out of the holiest of grails territory for me, but it's the name on the dial. If you've seen my recent video on cancel culture in watches, you'll know Francois-Paul Journe, the genius behind the brand, has courted some controversy. And I'm not quite sure where I stand on this with such a large purchase. Along and Zona, the Langer 1 moon phase in rose gold. This is straight into the holiest of grails. This watch had a small shout out earlier. 38.5mm wide, 9.8mm thick. This is true slim watchmaking. The moon phase instead of the small seconds indicator I think elevates the overall piece, and after all, is something really a true Grail worthy dress watch without a moon phase? I guess not. Next up then, the Girard-Perregaux Casquette. Now, I would not be surprised if you didn't all know what this watch was. It's a bit of a cult piece and was reintroduced back in 2022. This has a retro-futuristic quality to it. It's your driver's watch style setup in digital watch format. The original of these are now few and far between, with the digital watches having withered since their 1976 original launch. Looking on Chrono24, I found these new ones spread from between £3,000 and £5,000, and the originals at quite an attractive £1,500. Personally, I don't like the aesthetic. If I were in the market for a digital watch, well, I'd be going straight to Casio, but I don't find this off-putting. You may disagree. So I'm putting this into you do you. Moving on then, the Creedor Iki 2, apologies for my pronunciation. But just like the Longer, this goes straight into the holiest of grails. Other than the AP, I think this is the most expensive watch we've had so far at 51 grand, but rightly so. Creedor, if you've not heard of them, are Seiko's ultra-luxury wing, sitting above Grand Seiko. It's their Holy Trinity brand rival. Now this platinum watch is in so-called limited production. It's a case of put your email in and hope for the best. On Chrono24, only 2 are for sale outside of Japan, one in Hong Kong and the other in the United States. At its heart, you'll find the spring drive 7R14 movement with a 60-hour power reserve, but more importantly, this beautiful display back with an amazing etching on it. It is the holiest of grails. Right then, an odd one I didn't expect seeing, the Piaget Polo S chronograph. Now, obviously I'm a bit of a Piaget fanboy. Note the advert behind me. I'm putting this in, I get it, I really do though. I tend not to lust after many of the integrated bracelet pieces, so don't take this as a criticism of the watch. I think the Piaget Polo S looks to the Nautilus and refines and adjusts its design, dropping the elephant ears. This is for those who like the Nautilus but want to be different. But the white dial chronograph, this continues that refining of the Nautilus but turns its eye to the Nautilus chronographs, which in my eyes can often seem a little unbalanced. Right, the Cartier tank, specifically reference WSTA 0041. Now this is a watch I personally have a love-hate relationship with. £3,300. It's a lot for a quartz watch, true. As I have said with the Santos, these quartz Cartier can seem overpriced. However, this is the entry point into Cartier ownership, so I feel it's maybe a little more justifiable. And if you're going to use this as a dress watch for your date nights and galas, this might actually be the more convenient option for you. All the look of a dress watch without the hassle of a mechanical movement. But I'm going to put this in the holiest of grails, as it's a watch I've thought about for years and just can't get out of my head. Next up then, the Grand Seiko Lake Suwa. Pronunciation, apologies Grand Seiko fans. It was only so long before someone put forward a Grand Seiko. I think for many collectors this is the attainable end goal. The finishing is better than a comparable Rolex. The watches do mark you out as a watch enthusiast. Spring drive is a great movement, and the Lake Suwa has the most beautiful wave dial I've seen in a long time. I'm going to put this in, I get it, I really do. I feel that as a watch community we're all very much divided over Grand Seiko, and that is okay. Grand Seiko in general I think is a highly rational choice, but does it appeal to the hearts? I am not so sure. Now, it wouldn't be a list of Grail watches without an entry from Vacheron Constantin. And one person with excellent taste put forward the overseas moonphase retrograde. I know the whole category of integrated bracelet sports watch is meant to straddle the line between sports watch and dress watch, but I think this one somehow manages to do better than the rest, even though it's a 41mm item, which means as it's an integrated bracelet piece, it will wear a little larger than the size it represents. With the moon phase and the date indicator, it brings in some more traditional design elements into the integrated design that's already a little more curvaceous than the comparable AP or Patek. So I'm putting this in, I get it, I really do. If your Grail watch has to be a true one and done piece, this would be it. However, I think a Grail ought to be a little more special, so it doesn't get the Holiest of Grails title. Right, we've found them. The one person who yearns for the two-tone Rolex Explorer. This goes right into "and you're mad." Even in the middle of the watch market boom, you could apparently get these from 80s for less than retail. It's weird, two-tone Rolexes are popular and often look incredibly good. Example being the Datejust. The Explorer is arguably one of the best looking Rolex models on the market as well. But put the two together and it just doesn't work. The Explorer, while a polished bit of jewellery, is Rolex's take on a field watch. And a field watch should never be blingy. Right then, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. This will ruffle some feathers, I'm sure, but I'm going to put it in "you do you." This isn't because there's anything wrong with the watch, but because of the list price. 15 grand. Now, I know we're in a list of Grail watches, so cost is sort of out of the window, but 15 grand does seem a little bit too high. Even a Submariner at inflated grey market prices is a little bit less than this. While this has a different vibe, is it really better? Perhaps not, but different, yes. The JLC Polaris. This is another "you do you" watch. You know when brands are making a watch and it sort of feels like they're doing it for the sake of it? The Polaris feels a little bit like a "we needed a sports watch." The zest of JLC, their status as the watchmaker's watchmaker, just doesn't feel like it's there in the Polaris line. It's not a Master Ultra Thin or a Reverso Duo Face, but maybe that's why you like it, so you do you. The Nomos Club 703.1 and the Farah Lander 4 GMT. Now I'm lumping the two together as I'm going to say the same thing-ish. These are both the holiest of grails, not because of the watches themselves, but because of what they represent by having been put forward in this list. Two relatively affordable watches, and that's quite a wholesome reminder that we all start somewhere, and if you can find desire in a relatively affordable watch, all the power to you, and that should be celebrated. The Zenith Defy skeleton in ceramic. This is going in the holiest of grails. Now I know this is unlike a lot of the watches that I've put in this category, and I'm not just putting it here so that I don't seem stuffy, but I think your skeleton ceramics are befitting of Zenith in a way they're not of Hublot. Hublot is gaudy, new money, and even though the motifs are the same, I prefer how Zenith do it. I see Zenith, I think of the El Primero, I think of pushing boundaries, and this aligns with that just in a new 21st century way. And on the note of pushing boundaries, we've got the Breguet 3795. This is an interesting watch. Breguet obviously made many firsts, and the 3795 decided to throw pretty much all of them at a watch. Tourbillon, skeleton dial, guilloche elements, and a perpetual calendar. It is haute horology, but to me it feels like Breguet trying to fit what they do into modern, expensive watch design. It seems inauthentic, almost gauche, a sharp contrast to the Zenith we've just had. I won't say you're mad for lusting after it, but I wouldn't be, and most certainly not at over 300,000 Swiss francs. But as I've said before, you do you. Now, we've got the only vintage watch in this list, a Universal Genève pole router. I'd put this in you do you. Now that's not because it's bad, but I struggle to see how any UG can be your ultimate grail for any reason other than you're making the edgy choice. These watches are interesting and a great stepping stone, but the ultimate lust item, no. Penultimately, we have the Omega Seamaster 300M. This is going right in the holiest of grails. I think a lot of us would agree about this. The 300M might be the entry point into Omega ownership, but for many, that still feels like an aspiration. In fact, for me, it is. The first time I noticed a watch was in Casino Royale, with Daniel Craig sporting the Seamaster on the train. Admittedly, the film made it a focus, sure, but that has made an indelible mark on me, that blue dial. Now last but not least, the Milgauss with the blue dial. Again, I'll ruffle some feathers, but it's going into You Do You. Up until recently, the Milgauss was the newest addition to the Rolex lineup, and we all love the lightning strike hand. It's fun, but I wouldn't be getting the blue. I've never been much of a fan of turquoise, but its green sibling, yes please. What is your Grail watch? What would you put in the holiest of grails? Let me know below. As ever, thanks ever so much for watching. Do subscribe if you want to see more of my work, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.